All right, so this is the last section from chapter 1. This is 1.6. It's talking about angle pairs. Some of them you guys will already know. Some of them will be new, okay? And the cool thing is that you're going to be doing them all year. So from this point forward, we're going to be talking about these terms. All right, so complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. You already know this. So over here, for example, angle 1 plus angle 2 add up to 90 degrees. Angle 3 plus angle 4 add up to 90 degrees. They can be adjacent or non-adjacent, and we will get to adjacent here in just a second, as you can see right here. And then supplementary, two angles that add up to 180. So again, they can be adjacent or non-adjacent. All right, so our next term is adjacent. As we looked in the first two, it talked about adjacent and non-adjacent. Adjacent angles are angles that share a side and a vertex. In other words, they are side by side. There's no gap between them, like this example right here. Another example would be, let me do, well, give me my line back. Okay. So for example, right here, this angle is adjacent to this angle because they share a side and a vertex. So that's adjacent, okay? The next word is linear pair. A linear pair are two angles that form a line. And the thing with that is that they have to be adjacent. In order to be a linear pair, they have to be adjacent. All linear pairs are adjacent, but not all adjacent are linear pairs. Because, for example, the picture I just drew, this is not a linear pair, but they are adjacent. So do you see how it's true one way, but not the other? Okay. Vertical angles are our next term. Vertical angles are angles that form intersecting lines. So for example, if you drew an X as such over here, you would see that angle 3 is opposite angle 6. Well, the cool thing about vertical angles is they are always congruent. Linear pairs are always supplementary. So angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 180. So I would say angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 180 degrees. Where if they are vertical, they're always congruent. So I would say angle 3 is congruent to angle 6, or angle 4 is congruent to angle 5. And I always put these little tick marks in my angle symbols so that they don't look like greater than or less than signs. Okay. So here we go. All right, so now let's take these terms and do some basic math stuff with it. So identify the complement and the supplement. So remember, complementary means 90, supplementary means 180. In the figure, name a pair. Pair means two. So name a pair of complementary angles. So two angles that would add up to 90. So I'm thinking this angle plus this angle. So angle CAB plus angle RST equals 90 degrees. Name a pair of supplementary angles. So this angle right here plus this angle here. So angle CAD plus angle RST equals 180 degrees. Now it says to name a pair of adjacent. So now I just want two angles that share a side. So that would be these two angles. So angle CAD and angle CAB. They're not equal to anything. They're not equal to each other. It just said to name a pair. They're not equal to anything. They're just adjacent. So I would go complementary, supplementary, adjacent. Just so when I look at this, I know which one belongs to which category. All right, next example. Find the measures of complements and supplements. Okay, first of all, complements. That means two things that add up to 90. So if I know one of them, then the other one is the complement. For example, if you take 90 and subtract what you know, that's how you get the complement. So maybe this would equal the complement. So that means that 180 minus x is equal to the supplement. So if angle 1 is the complement of angle 2, that means angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 90. If angle 2 is 57, then that means 90 minus 57 is equal to the complement, 33. Same thing for supplement. Angle 3 plus angle 4 equals 180. So 180 minus 41 is equal to the supplement, 139. So what I have here is an example of a word problem talking about complements and supplements. So 2 times the complement is equal to a quarter the supplement. So think about what that says. Let's move it down here a little bit. So 2 times the complement. Well, what is the complement? The complement is 90 minus x. So 2 times the complement is equal to a quarter the supplement. So I could work this out by solving for x. So this would be 180 minus 2x. Let's see, 180 over 4. I don't know if that goes in evenly. So 1/4 of 180 is 45 minus 1/4 x. Got to distribute to both pieces. So what I'm going to do is subtract 45 from both sides. So now I've got 180 minus 45. So that gives me 135 minus 2x equals negative quarter x. Now I'm going to add this 2x over here. Oops. So now I've got 135 equals, well, if I have 2 and subtract a quarter, that gives me 1 3/4 left. So what I'm going to do here is convert this mixed fraction into an improper fraction. So 7 over 4x. Now to solve, all I got to do is multiply by the reciprocal so that I can get what x is. And then I can figure out the rest. So 135 times 4 divided by 7. Math enter. So it looks like x is like 77.4. So 2 times the complement is equal to a quarter of the supplement. So that means that the complement is 77.4. So I would subtract that from 90 to get that answer, and then subtract it from 180 to get the supplement. Okay, so the angle they're talking about is 77.4 degrees. That's the angle they're talking about. Okay, so you're going to see some problems like that in the assignment where you have to interpret your word problems. All right, here you can either draw a picture or you can, I always do pictures, and I honestly don't know what happened to my other angle that I had on here. L, M, and N. So L, M, N is an angle. P, Q, R is an angle, and they are complementary. I know that this one is 4x minus 2. I know that this one is 9x plus 1. I know that the two together are going to add up to 90 because they're complementary. 4x minus 2 plus 9x plus 1 equals 90. Add your like terms and then solve for x. 13x equals 91. By adding 1 to both sides, divide by 13. I get that x is 7. Now, they're not asking for x. They're asking for find the measures of the angles. So that means this is 4 times 7 minus 2. So this is 26 degrees. This is 9 times 7 plus 1. So that would be 64 degrees. So there are the measures of your two angles. All right. Here you have a basketball pole. It forms a linear pair with the ground. So what I do know is that these two angles together are going to add up to 180 degrees. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I just did, except I'm going to set them equal to 180. So now I have 3x plus 8 plus 4x minus 3 equals 180. So I'm going to combine like terms. 7x plus 5 equals 180. 7x equals 175. So 175 divided by 7 is 25. So x is 25. Now it said find the measure. Please keep in mind this little m right here. When you see that little m, it means measure of the angle in degrees. I actually want the numeric value. Okay, if there's not an m in front, then you just tell me what's congruent. But if there's an m, that means I want the measure. So since it said to find the measures, that means I have to plug it back in. So 3 times 25 plus 8. So 75 plus 8 is 83 degrees. And then the other one is 4 times 25 minus 3. 100 minus 3 is 97 degrees. So there are your two angles. All right, here we go. Identify the angle pairs. So you're just identifying. You're not having to do any crazy math or anything. You're just looking at it and finding your pairs. So for linear pairs, I want two angles that make a line. For example, these two angles, 1 and 2, make a line. So angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 180 because they are a linear pair. Angle 2 and angle 3 are a linear pair. Now, I do know for a fact that if I add up those three, they make that blue line on the bottom. They're not a pair, but they are linear. Does that make sense? So like I said, 1 plus 3 plus 4 equals 180. And I could also do the same thing going this way. Angle 1 plus angle 4 plus angle 5, angle 5 equals 180. Even though they're not a pair, all three of them together make 180. And then our other option here are vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are opposite each other. So angle 1 is equal to angle 3. I also know, now these aren't a linear pair either, but I know that angle 2 is equal to angle 4 plus angle 5. because this angle 2 is the same as 4 and 5 together. You'll see it? In geometry, you have to be able to look at a picture and you have to be able to read the picture. You have to understand the markings in the picture. You have to look for complementary angles, look for supplementary, find those vertical angles, find those linear pairs, because those are things that you know are either going to be equal or add up to 180. And it gives you a starting point to work through the problem. Find the angle measures in a linear pair. Well, I know two angles form a linear pair, so I'm just gonna draw a picture of two angles representing a linear pair. It says the measure of one angle is 5 times the other, but they didn't tell me anything about either angle. So when that happens, choose one of your angles and set them, just make it an X, because that's what you did in algebra. If you didn't know something, you said, let's call it X. So since I don't know the measure of my angle, I'm going to call it X. And what I know is that the other one is 5 times bigger because it says it's 5 times the other. And if the other is X, then this one is 5X. Well, what do I know about a linear pair? I know they're equal to 180. So that means X plus 5X is equal to 180. 6X equals 180. X is 30. So it says find the measure of each angle. So if I take and plug it in, I know that this angle is 30 degrees. And I know 5 times 30 is 150 degrees. And the two together should add up to 180. All right. So here's our last part. When looking at a picture, notice these two pictures are almost identical. Okay? You have to be able to conclude certain things. You can't just look at the top picture and say B is a midpoint because it doesn't tell you if anything is equal. The bottom picture, I know that B is a midpoint because it gives me tick marks. Okay? I can't determine anything up here except all the points are coplanar. They're all on the same plane. I know that A, B, and C are collinear because they're all on the same line. And I know that B is between A and C. So that means AB plus BC equals AC. I know that for a fact because I can visually see it with my eyeballs. Okay? The line AC, the ray BD, and the ray BE all intersect at point B. So you got, that's fact. Angle DBE and EBC are adjacent. So DBE, EBC, they are adjacent. That's all I know from this picture, that they're next to each other. And I know that point E is in the interior. So if I were to look at angle DBC, E is in the interior. Now, I cannot conclude these two things, or these three things actually, in this picture, but I can in this one. Because now they're telling me that AB is equal to BC, so that means that B is a midpoint. If angle BDE is congruent to EBC, because they have matching tick marks, then that means that ray BE is an angle bisector. And ABD is a right angle, so that means that angle ABD equals 90 degrees. This information you can conclude based on the marks. I couldn't say it up here because it didn't have the marks. Down here, it has the marks, so I can say it. Okay, so you have to be able to know the difference.